Hello, I'm Kara O'Donnell, and this is County Board Wrap-Up, our monthly deep dive into the actions taken by the Arlington County Board at its monthly meeting, as well as hot topics around the community. Today we're joined, as always, by County Board Chair Katie Crystal. Katie, thanks very much for joining us.
A pleasure.
Today we're going to be talking about the county manager's proposed capital improvement plan for fiscal year 2019 through 2028, rebuilding the county's only skate park, as well as long-term planning for 4 Mile Run Valley. So, Katie, let's get right into it. The county manager presented his proposed capital improvement plan at the May meeting. Let's talk about what is a capital improvement plan. Let's start there, and why is that a whole separate thing than we just went through the budget process?
Absolutely. So the capital improvement plan is our 10-year plan for infrastructure, basically. What we're going to build, what we're going to maintain, how we're going to maintain it, what we might be upgrading or replacing in the county. It's a way of planning for the funding and timing of our needs and priorities for these major investments, these capital investments, over a 10-year time horizon. Whereas our operating budget, we update every year for the expenditures we plan to make during that fiscal year.
Well, then why do we do the capital improvement plan for a 10-year period, and then we need to revise it every couple of years?
Absolutely. So we do revisit it on a biennial basis, as you were just alluding to, and it's a way of revisiting our priorities, of course. Projects move in and out, right? As projects are funded through bonds, they're completed, they're moved off the rolls of the capital improvement plan, and new things start getting added on in the back end. They might be things that we've realized are now starting to reach the end of their useful life, fire stations that are more than half a century old in some instances, or others as we start to look out into the longer forecast, which shifts up 2 years each cycle, we start to see more things that might need a new touch or a new facilities need entirely.
So it needs that kind of constant re-looking at it with a new lens
Exactly.
to find out. So what would you say with this most recent plan, what are the big ticket items, so to speak, the things that we're really going to prioritize?
Absolutely. So the manager proposed about $2.8 billion in investments over the next decade. The big pieces there, unsurprisingly, because they're the big pieces in our operating budget as well, are transportation, chiefly metro, and the public schools.
What about in terms of the debt ceiling? Why do we need that to go along with this kind of
Great question.
plan?
You hear this magical 10% number, right, which is a function of debt obligations in a given year relative to our overall expenditures. And it's a way that we actually signal to those who might be loaning the county money over the long term that we're making prudent financial decisions. And it's paid off over time. The county is one of the rare communities in America to have a AAA bond rating from all 3 of the major rating agencies.
So a triple A bond
You got
rating.
it, exactly. And it means that we do spend less money on financing our debt over the life of those debts, and it means that we are always eligible for good terms and for people who want to invest in our public infrastructure. It's not something every community can say, and it's really important to Arlington County.
Now, how does that then in turn affect the CIP, Capital Improvement Plan, itself?
It basically sets the box of what we can borrow, of what we can go to the bond market and request, and what we plan to finance. And so when we say there's not enough within the CIP to do X or Y, there are always more projects than we have financing for. That's the ceiling or the boundaries of the box that tell us what we can spend.
Now, as we've discussed here on County Board Rep in the past, this is a lean, budget year. Has this then had any impact on the CIP, or are they apples and oranges?
No, they're very related, right? So again, the 10% is the debt service to overall expenditures. If the overall expenditures are lower because we've been taking in less revenue or our growth in revenue has been slower, then that means we have less debt available to us as well under that 10% ceiling. The other major constraint on this CIP is that metro funding deal that we talked about over the past couple of months while the General Assembly was in session. As I think we talked about in our April wrap-up, we got some disappointing news from the General Assembly. The governor had made a series of amendments that would have allowed us to finance that dedicated revenue source for metro with new revenue sources. The General Assembly, on a party line vote, rather specifically the House of Delegates, rejected those and basically funded metro in 2 ways. One, by taking money away from the major regional source of projects. We are feeling that now because we're less eligible for, there's less funding for which we can be eligible for things like the Crystal City and Ballston metro entrances. And the bill also obligated each of the metro jurisdictions to pay more in. For Arlington, that looks like between 100 to 110 million additional money over the 10-year life of the CIP. It's money we weren't planning on 2 years ago, and as you might imagine, if that box isn't growing, which it isn't, that money had to come from somewhere else. And so at the end of the day, we've had to scale back or in some cases defer even indefinitely other projects that were important priorities for the county.
So, but we have to kind of give and take because Metro is kind of still not completely certain at this point.
Well, that's exactly right, and it's a great point, Kara. It's not just that we're obligated to by the General Assembly, it's that having this dedicated revenue source is incredibly important for Metro's future. And as I was mentioning, so many of our transportation projects we wouldn't go forward with if there weren't a Metro already.
Anyway, yeah.
So it's a great point.